Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. Today we're doing the Ultimate Chanel Book Guide. This is a highly requested video because in most of my other videos and Instagram posts, whenever I do talk about Chanel or write about Chanel and books that I order that I love to read on Chanel, a lot of you ask me, Dacob, which book should I read first? I want to start learning about Chanel's life or fashion. Where to begin? So instead of answering many times, it's going to be this one video that's going to explain a little bit in detail, actually a lot in detail, what to look for, which sort of books are good. I've created a list. Now, this list is basically subdivided in categories, the types of books on Chanel that exist. And these categories will be important for you to follow because according to the category you're interested in, there will be certain books for that particular category that are particularly good. Also, all the books that I will showcase, I will post a link, an affiliates link on my Amazon affiliates program in the description box underneath this video. You can follow that link to get all these books because this helps out the channel a lot. It doesn't cost you 1 cent more than you would pay anyway for these books. But if you do purchase a book, Amazon says, thank you, Dacob, and gives me a little tiny percentage of that profit to sustain my channel. Also, you could just follow the affiliates link and purchase whatever else you would like. Amazon will still help me out. So that is great news. Let's begin with the number 1 category, which is historically relevant biographical books. Now, also stay tuned because in this video, I will also show you my favorite books, independent from all the categories, the books that I love the most on Chanel. But stay tuned for that. So historically relevant biographical books are subdivided in 3 subcategories, basically. One is autobiographical. Then we have, that's A. B, biographical. And sometimes we have the subdivision. Some are shady and some are a bit more objective. And then we have the subcategory C, light biography, mostly with images. They're kind of just describing very superficially the life of Chanel, and they go more into kind of, I don't know, short notions about her life, more images about her fashion, or a bit more gossipy information about her, and they're usually quite short books. So let's get into the biographical part. What I find very interesting, let's begin first with the Perfume. The Secret of Chanel No. 5, The Intimate History of the World's Most Famous Perfume by Tilar J. Mazzeo, best-selling author of The Widow Clicquot. This particular book does explain the birth of Chanel No. 5, and there's, of course, a lot of information on Chanel as well. Now, this one is biographical. It has a lot of facts, but it could be borderline novel, but it does list facts. I mean, when I state facts, every author finds ways to find their facts. Of course, when we go so much back into history, a lot of things are documented, but a lot of things are speculative as well. But anyway, this one, to me, is listed under a really good one. If you're interested in perfumes and Chanel fragrances and Chanel No. 5, The Secret of Chanel No. 5 is a good book to read. Here's a set of 3 books. These particular books are in German. I do speak, gosh, around 7 languages, so don't be surprised by any of this. There's going to be books in Spanish and English and in Italian, and well anyway, but any book from Edmond Charles Roux. Here's another one. Here's another one. This is an actually interesting one because it's a very big one. There's a lot of pictures here as well as a lot of text. These are also available translated in English as well as, of course, they're in French. They're also in Italian. There are also copies that exist in Spanish. Basically, Edmond Charles Roux has written a lot of different biographies on Chanel and is considered to be one of the specialists when it comes to Chanel's history. So Coco Chanel by Edmond Charles Roux, all sorts of titles are good to, it's a good place to start. Let's just say it like that. This is an interesting one. I enjoyed this one a lot. The Improbable Return of Coco Chanel, as witnessed by her assistant, Richard Parker. Now, Richard Parker was not really her assistant when she was called to, by the Wertheimers, to go to New York and personally create the whole interior visuals and construction of the, back for the 50s, newly set up or to be set up Perfume headquarters or Perfume showroom or the main showroom in America or New York of Chanel perfumes. She went and stayed in New York to personally to personally direct the whole construction of this showroom. And Richard Parker was kind of given the task to be by her side and assist her. So this is his very short testimony of how it was to work with her or for her. Gives a little bit of insight into something we don't usually hear anything about, you know. Her struggles with the Wertheimers, in particular, her trying to do her own perfumes because she couldn't get the rights back to the original fragrances from the 20s. And then how she comes to terms with having to deal with the Wertheimers. So it's a fascinating read. If we're talking about Wertheimers, of course, this, biographically speaking, is also very interesting. Sleeping with the Enemy, Coco Chanel's Secret War by Hal Vaughan, or Vaughan, or Vaughan. I don't know how to pronounce the name correctly. Sorry for butchering your name. This is a shady one. This one goes under the category of shady because definitely this book fills you in on your need, if you have that need, to try to classify Coco under the whole, you know, Nazi regime and how she would have allegedly helped the wrong side of the war. But most of this is debunked in another book we're going to get to later on. However, it is interesting to know these details, whether or not you like what you read or whether or not you believe in certain things you read. It's good to know all the sides in general in life. It's always good to know both sides of every story, and then you make up your own mind. Sleeping with the Enemy, that's another one that you should read. If we're talking about biographies of Chanel, I think what is very important is also to know that one of her best friends, if not her best friends, was Misia Sert. So this is not a biography on Chanel, it is a biography on Misia, but you need to know about Misia if you want to know more about Chanel as well. This is a wonderful biography on Misia, The Life of Misia Sert by Arthur Gold and Robert Fisdale. This is an older edition that I got online, secondhand website, or I don't know, maybe even Amazon. I think Amazon also sometimes has these older editions you could buy used. This is a wonderful book. Also explaining that crazy time, mostly the 20s in Europe. We have the light biographies as well that I mentioned, the subcategory. Now the light biographies, they're kind of, you know, they're funny. They don't really teach you much. This one is in Italian, for example. Coco Chanel. It goes, this is edited by Mondadori. It's a very little book. Minimal, nothing new here. You're going to see photos that have been edited and showcased elsewhere already. And it's a very kind of superficial knowledge on Chanel. So this is a beginner's thing, you know. The Little Book of Chanel by Emma Baxter Wright, the same concept. This one is edited by Carlton. Cute book. Gives us, I'm looking at it, gives us a lot of photos, a little bit of text. This one more kind of explains the allure, the fascination of Chanel rather than her biography. Same applies to Vogue on Coco Chanel. Bronwyn Cosgrave. Also a lot of images, mostly things that were also published by Vogue or in Vogue. And showcases also some people, mostly actresses or actresses actually, that wore Coco Chanel. So this is the light biography with mostly images. The selection of these these are the three, these two being the most fun, more views than reads. Now we're getting to biographies. This is point 2, or part 2. Biographies that could be semi-fiction novels. Chanel, A Woman of Her Own by Axel Mattson. Edited by Owl Books. So it is a book on Chanel, but it has that novelistic flair, so a lot of this feels like it's taken from other places and other books. It's a fun read, but you can't really deem it a biography. Similar applies to Anne de Courcy Chanel's Riviera, Life, Love, and the Struggle for Survival in the Côte d'Azur, 1930 to 1944. The subtitle already tells us very clearly that we're dealing with a novel type that goes, it describes a very particular historic time. The context is historically very well set in place by Anne de Courcy. That is beautiful to read, but it gives it a novel flavor. And Chanel is at the center of this 1930 to 1944 Riviera edition of her life, basically. So it's a good one, but it's more in that number 2 category, which is biographies that could be semi-fiction novels. Third one is Mademoiselle Chanel, a novel. You see, they even state it's a novel. Deliciously Satisfying by C.W. Gortner. Gortner tells the epic rags to riches story of how this brilliant, mercurial, self-created woman became a legend. It has that gossipy touch. So these 3 would be the books that might not deliver facts, but will be a juicy, more simple read without too many contextualizing references where you read a text like this on one page and the rest of the page is basically references. It's telling you, okay, this was taken from that document, that this information from up here is taken from that document. So it's less of a historical read, but more of an entertaining read, all 3 of these. Now we're moving to category number 3, which are books by Karl Lagerfeld on the Chanel brand and his artistic vision of Coco Chanel herself. Now this is he has made quite a few of these projects, especially in film form, but I'm going to talk about only a few that really, that I love a lot, being this one, the first, Karl Lagerfeld's Chanel's Russian Connection, edited by Steidl. It is Karl Lagerfeld's Paris-Moscow collection. For the Paris-Moscow collection, he also created an additional video. And in fact, we do have a DVD in here. And you see screenshots of his movie in here, as well as photos of the fashion show. Paris-Moscow being one of the most decadent and opulent collections that he has made for Chanel. We have Chanel art from the 10s. This is the 10s era. Lagerfeld's collection dedicated to art for Chanel. He edited a book about that collection and about all the art or the design pieces that were meant to resemble art during the fashion show, during the actual runway in the Grand Palais. So it's like art invented for fashion, a very peculiar concept. So this one is fascinating, doesn't showcase the actual clothes, but it showcases more. Let me just double check again. Haven't looked through it in ages. Yeah, it showcases all the Chanel-inspired design / artistry for the fashion show. It's very niche, very, very, very niche, but I love it. Then if you remember, most of you remember the supermarket shopping, what was it, fall winter 14 or 13, I think it was 14, Chanel shopping center, the supermarket, also in the Grand Palais, all of the products that were created for this fictitious supermarket have been photographed and in a way catalogized here in this very, cheaply printed, quickly made, almost like a pamphlet-y type of, also Steidl editions. I think this one is as well. Yeah, they're all Steidl. Lagerfeld worked with them a lot. These are the 3 that I would definitely recommend for your collection. This is a very interesting way of binding on the side. It's just all glued together. Okay, so this would be books by Lagerfeld. He also made other books, obviously, but these are the ones that are the most affordable and also kind of make more sense. Category number 4. Category number 4 are books on Chanel, fashion history, and collections. Now, there is a subcategory A, which would be collections during her life, and category B, collections after, posthumous, like during her life and also after her life. So a bright span of the entire Chanel brand rather than just Coco Chanel's creative part. So what do we have in this selection? Here's an interesting one, Chanel Key Collections by Melissa Richards. Hamlin. This one, with a black pullover and 10 rows of pearls, she revolutionized fashion. Quoted Christian Dior having said that. So when I look inside the book, we have everything is split in decades and years, last year being somewhere around 1998. So this one, I think this one was also released around the late 90s. First published in 2000. So here we have older Chanel collections and the Lagerfeld era up to the last year of the 90s. Here you will see not just Patrick Morier, you're not going to see just her jewelry, including the 1932 first jewelry, haute joaillerie collection that she made, but you will also see some costume jewelry as well as the transition from jewelry to costume jewelry. You're going to also see the Verdura count pieces that were made, you know, her famous cuffs. They're also depicted here. All jewelry and costume jewelry, not all of it, but it's dedicated to jewelry and costume jewelry production during her life. This is a really nice one. Chanel Collections and Creations, Thames and Hudson, Danielle Bott. This is a famous one. Usually when you check Amazon, this is the first one that always pops up. You will see mostly the Karl Lagerfeld collections, all the way up to which year? Around 2004, 2005. Here we have Chanel from Jean Lemarie, edited by Abrams. Will it focus? There it is. Here you get to see a lot of inspiration, Chanel's inspiration, things that inspired her, her work, mostly stuff during her life. This is a coffee table book of sorts. Gets dirty very easily. It's white. And you will have collections, pieces from the collection shown, as well as things that inspired her. There will be a little tiny mention towards the end of the book also on Karl Lagerfeld's creative directorship of the Chanel brand, but it's mostly Coco Chanel before Lagerfeld. So this is a really good one. This one is the Chanel Metropolitan Museum of Art collection from 2005. The sketch or the drawing is made by Karl Lagerfeld. I bought this used from a library that no longer, actually this one was from a college. I think this was from the St. Martin's, no, this is from a library in the States. They sold it, they didn't want it anymore. This one showcases a lot of clothes that were shown in the Metropolitan Museum of Art back in 2005. Collection, the exhibition dedicated to Chanel. This is in fact an exhibition book / catalog. Has some beautiful photos and interesting details on a very broad, long spectrum of Chanel fashion, both her era when she was designing, and then also, of course, the Karl Lagerfeld era, ending with 2004 because the exhibition opened 2005. So I think the latest dated outfit that you see is from 2004/5. This is a nice one, relatively thick. There's a lot of images, very, very little text here. Chanel Catwalk, with the little rainbow print. This is a big one. It showcases all of the Karl Lagerfeld collections. This one came out 2016, so 3 years before Karl Lagerfeld passed away. So it almost has all of his collections, the highlights from every collection, be it Pret-à-Porter, the Cruise, as well as the Haute Couture from 1983 onwards. But it does end in 2016. So they might be maybe they have already published an updated version of this book, Thames and Hudson. There is a foreword by Patrick Mourier in this book, but other than that, it's basically catwalk, 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 catwalk. There is very little to no biographical context on Coco Chanel's life here. It's a coffee table book. This is an interesting one, Jérôme Gautier, Chanel, The Vocabulary of Style by Thames and Hudson. Again, collections. There is close to no biographical references about her life, Coco Chanel's life. This is more fashion oriented and mostly the Lagerfeld era. But it does have a really interesting selection. And only in some parts of the book, in particular costume jewelry and some clothing pieces that other books don't showcase. In general, what is lacking in the world of books on the Chanel fashion are more specific researched, in detail researched books on specific topics. This is something I would love to work on, by the way, but only the future will tell. So this concludes chapter or category number 4, books on Chanel, fashion history, and Chanel collections. We're moving to category number 5. Category number 5 are witty books that use her, Coco, for basically a quick buck, like postcards with mostly drawings and simple famous quotes of Coco. This would be the only one I want to showcase that's worthy of showcasing because it's cute, looks cute. Pocket Coco Chanel Wisdom. Basically, it's a little tiny booklet that is full of her quotes. On every page of the book is another quote. By the way, I'm not opening these books because in terms of fair use, as long as I'm describing them to you and reviewing the concept of the book, I can show it to you, but I'm not allowed to show you the interior of the inside of the books. So that's obviously, you can't do it. They're copywritten. So that's why. Bear with me, guys. Anyway, every page has a different quote, but you know, these books are usually made. Also, there's a lot of these books that come out, you know, people drawing, illustrating Coco Chanel as a little girl growing up. They're all cute, but they don't teach us anything really about Chanel. It's just a little extra added bonus if you already have everything on Chanel, you know, or if you don't know anything about her, you just wish to very, very superficially float in that little dreamy bubble that is the world of wisdom of Chanel, if you may. So that would be category number 5. Category number 6 is the Chanel catalogs. This is a thing, Chanel number 5 catalog. It's not a catalog, it's like a hardcover book that describes the history of Chanel. This one was printed in France. So this was given by Chanel, also exists in all languages. I do have it in 4 different languages. Then I'm going to showcase my favorite catalogs. Fall Winter 1992 being my favorite collection, also best time. So this is how the catalogs looked back then, glossy but soft. And then right after that, 1993, let me double check. I think this is, no, 1994, Autumn Winter 94-95. This is a wonderful collection as well. They became hardcover. They moved on to hardcover for a couple of years. This was the standard format, and then they started changing it. We're at the point where every year there's a different catalog, different size. And I am, in fact, going to show you one last catalog, very symbolic, that I just received from Chanel. It is very symbolic because this is the last Karl Lagerfeld collection for Chanel. The Fall-Winter 2019-2020 Pret-a-Porter collection. This is also a catalog where here Lagerfeld took the photos. He, not in the first years, usually Helmut Newton photographed the first ad campaigns, but very soon after that, Lagerfeld started taking photos, and he was the one taking all the photos for all the Chanel ad campaigns until his, all the way up until his passing. So this is his last design conceived collection, Fall-Winter 2019, but he did not take the photos. I read this catalog or looked through it from cover to cover. They do not state who the photographer is. If you're interested in Karl Lagerfeld's last Métier d'Art collection, the Paris/New York/Egypt collection, be sure to check out my video on the unboxing of several pieces from that collection. Very historic pieces. They will definitely enter Chanel's design history. The link to those videos is in the description box down below, but also at the end of this video. Now we're moving on to category number 7, which is also the last category. huge exhibition, limited edition books, art editions, books that cost over $1,000 or even more. These are things that I don't recommend because they're huge, they're heavy, they're waste, and also because most of them don't deliver any new news. It's a very, most of these books are very self-indulgent and quite arrogant. I do have one to show you, but again, this is something I purchased from a library that was selling it. It is ginormous. Look at it. It doesn't even fit into the camera frame. Culture Chanel. About her life, there's a little bit of... So this is a humongous book. Sometimes on some pages, you would literally open the book and the entire 2 pages would be an empty, just like a bar. Let's say like this is the wardrobe. You would have one bar here. From there, you would have one jacket hanging, but the jacket wouldn't be hanging frontally. It would be hanging sideways. So on a 2-page spread, you would have a bar and the jacket hanging sideways. So you don't even see the jacket. Like that's how useless it is. But it's just a show-off kind of thing, I guess. This was a collection, an exhibition, Culture Chanel. Then there was another one with a big book made on it. I think The Woman That Reads. It was about Chanel and her love of reading and her library. And again, this is on the books that she loved to read. I've been to Venice to the exhibition. There's a huge book that came out there. Then there was another book that came out in Paris in Palais de Tokyo about the fragrance Chanel No. 5. There was a limited edition book. Some artist, I think, etching or printing into the paper the shape of the bottle, the Chanel No. 5 bottle and stuff like that. Thousands and thousands of euros or dollars. These things, I don't understand. As art objects in their own right, maybe they're legitimized, but they don't help us to learn more information about Chanel really than we already know. So this is that category 7, you know, coffee table books. In this category also falls Karl Lagerfeld's book that you can find in almost every Chanel boutique, which is the Little Black Jacket book. I think he even made a second version of it, like part 2. Stars and starlets wearing the Chanel black jacket that he designed. I don't know if I've seen one single vintage really by Chanel made Chanel jacket worn in that book. So again, it's like a catalog, almost useless. And this thing is super heavy and I store it in my archives because I got it for a really great deal, but it's just, it's huge and it doesn't really teach us much. Now we get to the interesting part. I have withheld the most important information for the end. Now we're going to get to what I love to read. We're going to get back to, we're rewinding now. We are rewinding to category number 1. Category number 1, historically relevant biographical and autobiographical books. The autobiographical ones being in pole position. What does this mean? The love of my life. It's written by Paul Morand, but with Chanel herself, because this was written in exile, not just in exile, while she was in Switzerland, with Paul Morand. The Allure of Chanel. Every time, this one is from Pushkin Press, as you can see, it changed color also. I've read this from cover to cover. It's the small version. I take it always with me when I travel. But whenever a new edition comes out, I buy it. This one is still sealed. The Allure of Chanel, Pushkin Press, the newer edition. I have it still sealed. Then there's this one, my holy grail. Illustrations by Karl Lagerfeld, The Allure of Chanel. He actually illustrated every chapter with particular image depicting or portraying the essence of that chapter. So this is a really beautiful illustrated version of The Allure of Chanel. So yes, if they do bring out new editions, I purchase it. Must have, because it's literally written in the first verse, first person. So she is talking to you in this book. And these are all notes and snippets that Paul Morand collected while they were talking together, while having dinner or lunch or breakfast or what have you. She wanted him to make a book, then she changed her mind, but he still had everything written, and after her passing, he published it. A similar situation, this one unfortunately doesn't exist in English. This is the Italian version. This one was only edited in Italy, France, and Spain. So you could find it in French, Italian, or Spanish. Louise de Villemorand is a journalist that was friends with Coco, but then not after that anymore, so they had a falling out. Anyway, Coco Chanel, it's a similar book to L'Allure de Chanel. It is Coco she also contacted Louise de Villemorin, wanted Louise to make a biographical or slash autobiographical book on Chanel, but then kept changing her mind. Chanel kept changing her mind on whether or not she wanted to publish any sort of document, autobiographical or biographical. She really didn't like it. She kept changing her mind because her past, she just was super afraid of people misinterpreting it, of people not accepting the fact that she was an orphan. She never really came to terms with that, and she wanted to believe that her father was there to always help her and protect her, even though he left her all alone. So it's very complicated. But this is one of those books that I really like, together with Allure of Chanel. Now, this falls under, I personally categorize this under historically relevant biographical books, category 1. It is 3 weeks that Douglas Kirkland spent with Coco Chanel photographing her. He's a photographer. He's also one of the most famous photographers that photographed Marilyn Monroe. Incredible insight. The way that he portrays Chanel here, how at the beginning she's kind of not so... She's suspicious of him, and then as time progresses, she opens up to him more and more and delivers those magical Coco Chanel smiles. So this book has been released in many different... So this one, forward by Judith Thurman, Glitterati editions. It's been edited in many different ways. There's also a very expensive version of this book, like bigger book, also hardcover like this one, but much bigger with a very special cover, and I think maybe even a glossy print or view of a couple of the photos. That's really over $1,000. But then there's also smaller size. This is kind of a mid-format, beautiful. The photos in there are great. It's 3 weeks of Coco Chanel's life in 1962, so this is 9 years prior to her passing. This is a must-have if you want to capture the essence of that woman, both in her ateliers in Rue Cambon, as well as walking to the Ritz, from the Ritz, and going out with Douglas Kirkland out and about in Paris and the outskirts of Paris. From Chanel to Rêve, La Pausa and its collections at the Dallas Museum of Art. This one does fall under, well, it's historically relevant, biographical in terms of it does teach us that the Villa La Pausa has been purchased back. I mean, it was Chanel's, then she sold it, now it's been bought back by the Chanel company, and they want to restore La Pausa to its splendor, how it looked like when Chanel was alive and when Chanel owned La Pausa. It is also bits and parts of this, of the pieces that are in La Pausa that were in the Dallas Museum of Art in an exhibition are also showcased here. So it's just a beautiful insight into this particular villa that has seen many, many famous people pass by. One of the most famous things that Chanel did, even though back in the 20s already, even though she was so rich and popular and famous, 30s, her guests that would come to visit her and stay with her over the weekend or for a week, that would just enjoy, rich people, obviously, she wouldn't serve them. There would be no servants serving the food. She would be one of those first people who would just prepare like a buffet, and everybody would have to stand up and serve themselves. That was a revolutionary concept back then. She had a tendency of making people revert to just a modesty, a certain type of modesty, people that were surrounding her. And there was a certain elegance and beauty to that. It comes very clear through this book. And this is a special treat for you. For those of you who have stuck with me through this video till the bitter end, of course, always the best is at the end. This just arrived into the Fashion Bunker, Intimate Chanel by Isabelle Fimaya, forward by Gabrielle Palas-Labruni. Now, Gabrielle Palas-Labruni, I hope I am not butchering your name. Very interesting. She is the daughter of Chanel's nephew, and the only nephew basically that she loved and cared for and raised him like, well, that's what Gabrielle says, that Gabrielle Palas says that Coco, who also is Gabrielle, it's not a coincidence that Gabrielle Palas was also named Gabrielle after Coco, probably. This book was written by Isabelle Fimaya, but forwarded by Gabrielle Palas-Labruni, and Gabrielle Palas-Labruni gave Isabelle insight into whatever was left after Chanel's life, because Chanel passed most of her things on to Gabrielle Palas, which means we get to see personal objects and items of Chanel herself in this book, photographed in detail. Also, what is very fascinating, and here we go back to what I mentioned prior about the biographical books, about the particular book, Sleeping with the Enemy. A lot of those accusations that were, the accusations happened, but Chanel only allegedly did them. Gabrielle Palas-Labrounie debunked almost everything in this book. So through documents, and actually, I've just received this one, so I have to still read all the way through it. This was 2011. 2016, Isabelle Viehmeyer publishes Chanel, the Enigma. Also just arrived. Super looking forward to this one. It's a continuation of the other one. It adds more information. There's even more details to read, and very, very fascinating. Definitely a must. Both of these books are a must. If you want to really come close to Chanel, this is where you gotta go. Together with this one, The Allure of Chanel, this one, and this little photo book. So actually, this as well, by the way, if you're interested in La Pausa, Jacques Polge and Olivier Polge have created fragrances, Chanel fragrances called La Pausa, that capture the essence of this particular villa. So be sure to check out my video of La Pausa, the review of the fragrance La Pausa in both its eau de toilette and eau de parfum concentrations, also on my channel. This gives you even more insight into Chanel's life through the fragrance itself. But I would say these 5 books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are the essence. And it's not a surprise, 5. Number 5 seals the deal. The 5 books that seal the deal. This is number 5. That's the magic number. It's just perfection. Also, while you're here, be sure to check out my review of Chanel number 5. I have quite a few videos on Chanel number 5 that you might want to check out, because a lot of them also dig deep into the history, not just of this fragrance, but also of the essence of Chanel. Thank you guys so much for watching. These are the ultimate Chanel books, or this was the ultimate Chanel book guide as of 2019. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do thumb up this video, and be sure to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube for more videos to come. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Super Dacob, all spelled together. I'm also on Patreon, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank, from the bottom of my heart, all my patrons for helping me keep this channel going. Also, be sure to write me to askdacob@gmail.com if you have any questions and you want to be featured talking live to me in studio in one of my next episodes of Ask Dacob. Also a video that I would like to pitch here to you. You could check out the first episode, which is already available on my YouTube channel, the first Ask Dacob episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until I see you next time, never forget to never give up on love. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Bye.